Hello. It's Thursday, 4 p.m. It's the afternoon. It's time to draw. This is my new coming in hot intro. I shout and wave my arms around in the air. My iPad wants to access a file that I do not want it to access right now. So we'll just let that go. How is everyone? Hello to the skinny drawn boy. Hello to Director Gavado, my man in the chair. It is going well. It's been a very productive day. What am I drawing today? I am finally inking a new Chloe Noonan comic after 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. It's actually really happening. It's weird. I did my second draft of the lettering, so that's all in place. It has lettering, it has drawings. It's basically a comic. Let me know if I sound okay. Again, these are new headphones. Yeah, this is by no means a professional stream, but it's going to be a good stream, I hope. We're going to do some inking rather than some penciling. Not that I don't like penciling, but it's when I pencil on stream, it's a little bit nerve-wracking because this is essentially it's where I do all my thinking in the pencils. Inking, I just do, and I'm not really thinking about it. I am essentially tracing, to coin a phrase from Mallrats. So to publicly think with the pencils, it's a little bit nerve-wracking. But if you didn't see Tuesday's stream, that was a fun one. It's in the archive, my Twitch archive. It was a good time. Lots of people in the chat. People seem to enjoy the penciling, so I'll definitely do it again. I just got to get a little bit more confident with it. I'm a little bit nervous with my pencils. But yeah, inking today, so hopefully I can switch the brain off. So thank you for the compliments on the page. Yeah, let's get going. If you've got questions, drop them in the chat. I feel like I need to have some like rally call, like drop a H in the chat if you're here. I have been thinking about what my fan base should be called. I am okay with it being called the Ella Buddies. I don't know if I'm gonna make t-shirts or mugs, but maybe I will refer to people as Ella Buddies. You're my Ella Buds. So yeah, inking a page. I made sure to put the speech balloons in, the word balloons in case I needed to edit anything before I went in with the inks. My fiance has just texted me and said that you should be called the Ella Babes. Robin strikes again. Yeah, that probably means I'm being too loud. She can hear me through 2 closed doors. What was I saying? Yeah, so I made sure to I made sure that I had the lettering in place just in case I needed to edit anything. So you can read the comic if I keep zooming in and out, which I'm sure will be a pleasurable experience. But I'm going to fade the pencils a little bit, so sorry if that doesn't appear on screen. It does. Yeah, you can kind of see it. I need to make sure My pen settings are fine. Because I changed them. I had to default my settings because I moved. I don't know. I inadvertently moved some of the icons and I couldn't get them back, so I had to reset the entire layout, which meant everything's in its wrong place. But I think that looks okay. I'm going to lower that down. See what that's like. Okay. I want a thicker line for this. Try and experiment with a thicker line. People are talking about the Ella Buddies merch. Yeah, I'm thinking it'd be like the Dennis the Menace fan club, and you had like a Nasher badge with googly eyes. Sure. I'll tell you what, I'll do an Ellaby face with a googly eye. I need to move my Mac a little bit. There we go. Oh, I've got a question about the template. I never get questions about the template, Skinny Drawn Boy. No, it's a template that Oni Press gave me like 10 years ago when I started working with them, and I just essentially manipulated it, so it's all blue. It's all blue line, so it's easier for me to print out if I needed to draw over. It's at 600 DPI. It's US Comic Standard. If I remember after this, I don't mind sharing the template on my Dropbox for people to grab. Maybe someone send me a tweet, and then I will read it, and then I will post it later, and you can all grab that for free. It's really handy. They did one for double-page spreads as well. Essentially, for those who don't know anything about comic printing, you have a live area, and you have the trim line and the bleed, and you'll see that I've essentially gone up to the live area on some panels, and I've gone full bleed on the others. Excuse me. Essentially, when you go full bleed, anything between the live area and the bleed has a sort of like, I don't know, 50-50 chance of it being trimmed off when it gets printed and cut down. So anything in the trim area is stuff that you don't mind losing. And the stuff between the trim and the bleed area is stuff that will probably be cut off. But as plates shift and paper shifts in the printing process, you have to have that sort of like little buffer there. In case something goes wrong. Essentially, you don't want any text falling outside of the live area. You can have like a little bit of a speech balloon above it. That's fine, but any text you want to sort of keep in the live area. You don't want that going into the trim and into the bleed. Is this interesting? I'm sure someone will let me know. But yeah, this is one of the good things of working for Oni is that they really do have your back for that sort of thing, where they are acutely aware that some people, this might be their first comic, so they have all the stuff ready to go. I've not really found that with other publishers. Sometimes I've had to ask for the print size, and they send it over, but it needs like an extra few millimeters bleed, and they didn't tell me that until after I've drawn it or something, or maybe I'm just an idiot. It's probably the latter part that I'm a ding dong. So yeah, I did the lettering this morning. It was a bit nervous. I knew the script needed some work, but I was quite pleased when I wrote it all out. I did my second draft. It wasn't that bad. It was actually pretty good. So what's my plan with this comic? My plan is that my Patreon pals will see it first, as they are giving me some sweet coin every month. And if you're not a Patreon subscriber, and you would like to be, it's patreon.com/Marc Ellaby. But I realise times are tough, and if you are not in a position to give money towards a Patreon, that is completely understandable. You will still be able to see the Chloe Noonan comic. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it up for public view a few days later. Generally, with my Patreon going forward, any new comics that I make that are mine and mine alone, I'm going to try and have like an exclusivity period with the Patreon of at least a couple of weeks, maybe a month before it's either shown to the world or whatever. But because this comic is a lockdown-inspired comic, and things might be changing on Monday. I hope they don't, to be quite honest with you, but essentially the timing of the comic is a bit hot, so I need to kind of like get going. So the exclusivity period of the Patreon for this comic will be a bit shorter than what it will normally be. But yeah, I'm hoping to have it done by next week. I might do some work over the weekend. I have a couple of Rick and Morty covers to draw, and I have very vague deadlines, which is always the case with Rick and Morty. It's like me and the editors sometimes play chicken a little bit. I don't know why. I'm like, when do you need it for? And they're like, oh, what's your schedule like? And I'm like, well, when do you need it for? And they're like, oh, but what's your schedule like? Oh, thank you, Gav, for dropping the link into the chat. Gav, I should make you a mod or moderator. Maybe we can have a chat about that at some point. Not that anyone's been what's the word? Troublesome, but it would be nice if I didn't have to control the chat. So yeah, other than that, it's been business as usual, really. I have been thinking a lot about these streams, and depending on what happens in the next couple of weeks, if things are sort of going back to, I don't know, whatever, quote unquote, the new normal. I do wonder about the streams, because they're fine in the afternoon. Sorry, I took a dramatic gulp then. They're fine in the afternoon when people aren't working. But when people are going back to work, I might need to rethink the streams a little bit. So I might have to start doing maybe an evening stream or a weekend stream or something like that. I have to break up the schedule a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But if people are up for a different day, then let me know in the chat. It'd be interesting to see what people's thoughts are. To be honest, the idea of I tend not to work on a weekend unless I really have to. So. Because most of the streams I watch are American. and they tend to do the mornings, which is our afternoon. So like, apart from a couple who will stream whilst I'm asleep, which is nice because I get to wake up and then watch someone do some nice drawings. So yeah, sorry if I'm spinning the camera around a little bit. This happens more when I'm inking, just because I'm just like full on charge mode. James says Sunday 11s is with Marc. We'll watch the stream with tea and cake. Yeah. Our street is having a tea party tomorrow. Stay-at-home tea party. There's a buttload of bunting outside my window, and some big flags. And maybe it's the grump in me, but they can go screw. But yeah, I like the idea of doing. I don't know. I've got to think about a stream because essentially, some of the Patreon backers, essentially, they're getting an exclusive stream once a month. So I've got to figure that one out, and a time as well. But I'm thinking that's going to have to be a weekend job. On YouTube. I think I can do YouTube now. I think I've worked it out. Here he is. Here's the gloomy Gus himself. Who am I this time, John? Yeah, it's not Javier Rodriguez, no. Although, speaking of which, I saw some photos of the Treasury edition of that History of the Marvel Universe comic that he did, and oh boy, it looks very good. That is something which I will probably be buying. Sorry, Robin, for going a bit mad with the comic buying. But Javier is so good. They all are. Javier Rodriguez, Javier Pulido, Marcus Martin. I'm just going over old ground from Tuesday. But yeah, I would happily buy anything from those chaps. There are some hot takes about the VE Day celebrations. I look. No, I'm gonna leave it. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna keep it above board, but you could probably guess my thoughts on it all. How are you, John? I saw that Wicked Things has been rescheduled for June. That's good. Johnny is pleased he's be able to return to his natural home, the direct market. Yeah, I think my comic is going to be freed from Diamond UK's warehouse on Monday. That's nice. Yeah, the direct market where indie series thrive like seedlings in rain. Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe people will appreciate the indie comic market more now that Marvel are like chucking a bunch of their series from print straight to digital. Marvel just like, yeah, we ain't bothering, mate. We ain't bothering. Wild, absolutely wild. One of my favourite things is actually talking to people about the direct market, like civilians. Um, I should really say non-comic readers. Civilians is a bit arrogant. I was talking to my dad about it, and it's just when you say it out loud, it just sounds bonkers. It just sounds absolutely nuts. I mean, I've got um, such a love for it still, though. It's maddening. I was saying to Robin at dinner last night, I was like, could I make Chloe Noonan a monthly comic? And she just shot a look at me that said, you have forgotten what the last monthly comic you did to you. But I definitely want to do something. Yeah, Johnny says Chloe could be quarterly, like Headlopper, 40 pages every 3 months. We are on the same page, Johnny. Stick it up for free online, and then maybe do a print edition. Oh, I need my doggy designs. There we go. It's wild to look at the screen and then see text. Um, this is literally the furthest I've gotten with a Chloe Noonan comic. I think for 6 years, so it's I will stop banging on about it soon. Don't worry, but it's a nice achievement. There we go. I'm jumping around the panels a little bit. It looks a bit maddening. Essentially, so I can remember what brush size I'm doing for where people are in the foreground a bit more. Something I found while working on Rick and Morty, I was so sometimes in the zone. I would just barrel through using the same brush size. So I'm trying to nip that on the nip it on its butt a little bit. Do I have Chloe Mum designs? I don't think I printed them. Yeah, that's a good idea, Johnny. I'm going to have to I think, do that myself. I wanted to experiment with a thicker line this time as well. Just because I've been drawing nothing but Rick and Morty stuff. It's on such a thin line. I'd like it to have a bit more sort of bounce to it in the Noonan stuff. So I think the nib is starting to wear out a little bit on my Apple Pencil. That's a fun fact. Johnny says, I hope people appreciate how tiny Mark's lines are. This isn't normal. It is normal. I wonder if my pencils are rougher, though. So, going back to the idea of thinking it all through in the pencil stage. Oh, she's not that thin. Apparently, I complete my strokes perfectly each time with no wobble. The pen. It's impressive. Well, I don't know, man. I learnt from you, so I don't know. Thank you. Thank you for the compliments. I sometimes, when I print the issue, I see lots of inconsistencies with maybe the line weight. I've always been like that. My line weight has always been a little bit like sporadic. I tend not to erase much either. I think Johnny, you were talking to me about this as well. Especially with live streaming, when you see someone. I mean, I do this, but not as much. You're essentially like you go, oh, that circle's not perfect, undo. That circle's not perfect, undo. That circle's not perfect, undo. And the first one was fine. So I kind of had that in my head a little bit as well when I'm working. The sort of like, this is probably as good as it's going to get unless you've literally drawn a circle like that or like like that. There's a little bit of a delay. I'm sorry about that on the screen. Jake asks, do we know about stroke smoothing settings? I do, yeah. I've got, is it the stabilization setting? Because I have that. I tweak that a little bit now and again. We were talking about this on stream the other day about superhero comics looking like photographs. I think a lot. I've got to the point in my artwork where I can get stuff looking good. I'd like to move on to do something else as well. So like I really want to get this issue. It's not an issue. It's only 10 pages, but I really want to get this story done and out the door so I can get started on the next one. So that's kind of why I ink a bit quicker. I can normally get maybe 3 pages done a day. So yeah, like inking an issue of Rick or Morty can sometimes just take me a week, maybe 10 days. Wow, yeah, I've got a very long question. I'm gonna butcher the username like I normally do. It's Sally H. Gonil. Classic Ellaby butchering. Let's say Sally. They ask, how do you find a motivation for writing a story? I love sequential art and techniques of storytelling, but I don't enjoy to spend hours to write a story instead of spending that time for drawing. I produced 40 to 50 pages of slice of life comics. It's moved, so I need to find where I was. Slice of life comics. So I wrote but didn't like a 4-page silent comic about Jerry from Rick and Morty, but at the end I didn't enjoy story writing process. Is it okay to be a comic artist who does not enjoy writing? Sorry for the long post. Don't apologise. It's why we're here, to chat about process and comics and stuff. It is absolutely fine to be an artist who doesn't write. I certainly was for 5 years. Writing is extremely difficult. Essentially, you are doing the right thing, though. You're well, kind of. With my writing, so I really struggle with writing. I really do struggle with coming up with ideas, and then finding the confidence to then write. I talk myself out of it an awful lot. That's why nothing really happened on the Chloe Noonan front for so long. My advice for people essentially is to start small. So you're right to do a short comic, a 4 to 5 page comic. And then you build up from there. It's just about building the muscles, really. But if you really don't enjoy coming up with the ideas and coming up with dialogue and stuff like that, like Skinny Drawn Boy says in the chat, just try and find a writer. Try and find someone who can. Sorry, my OBS is telling me that I'm overloading the system. Let's, I think it's calmed down. I'll tell you what, I'm going to close Photoshop. Oh, I've got too many windows open. There we go. That's probably why. Let's close that. Let's close that. Don't close OBS or I'll go away. Let's close Bridge. Uses Bridge. Close printer. So yeah, it's not quote unquote wrong for that stuff. I mean, it is just practice at the end of the day. You have to exercise those muscles like you would do drawing. I don't think this is the best comic I've ever written, but the fact that I wrote it and then got it out the door is better than what I would normally do. Finish is better than unfinished. I don't know if that's helpful in any way. If you need to find a writer, then boy oh boy, there are hundreds and thousands of people who want to work in comics but can't draw, but have decent ideas. It's finding stuff that you want to draw as well. So I'm very happy drawing the Noonan world. Because it mixes the things I like drawing, in that I like drawing like modern day fashion. I didn't realise how much of a big thing that was for me. But like, not just fashion, but like modern day, like a modern day setting, a setting that I can recognise and hopefully other readers can. So there's that relatability there. But I also like drawing dumb monsters. You should try and draw about something that you really like drawing. Because it sounds to me like you enjoy drawing, but it's the writing and yeah. Slice of life stuff is a bit bland to draw. I like slice of life stuff. God knows I've done enough of it in my time, but it's not exactly the most exciting thing to draw. Have I given her... Yeah, I gave her a sort of like pointed chin. I'm still not 100% happy with the Chloe Noonan mother design, but it is what it is. I might do a George Lucas and remaster if this goes to print down the line. Just gonna see about tweaking the screen settings a little bit. No, it still says encoding overload. Okay, well. Oh, look at that. Off screen. Sorry, yeah, back to drawing. Where was I? I was down here. There we go. Down. Yeah, Johnny says something. He says, writing is two skills, making up the story and writing dialogue you aren't embarrassed by. I was good at the second part a long time before I was good at the first part. I find drafts are very important as well. So this is my second draft on this story, and I think there'll be another third and final draft. It's knowing when to edit as well. Unfortunately, sometimes when you've drawn something, it's harder to go back and patch things up. Johnny is talking about using Illustrator for lettering, which I did not do with this comic. Actually, Robin asked why I lettered it in, and I said I did it in Photoshop. There was an audible sigh. I need to learn that. There's a couple of things I need to actually invest the time in. I think lettering is one of them skills. Yeah, good luck, Sally. Sally H. Gone Neil. Still butchering those usernames. There are also tons of writing podcasts. The Writer's Room podcast I thought was quite interesting. It's more focused on TV writing, but them talking a lot about narrative and well, sequential narrative, even though it's on TV, might be quite helpful. Yeah, Skinny Drawn Boy makes a good point about saying about quieting the voice in your head that is saying you're no good at this is hard, but it is worth doing. Yeah, it's very hard to get over that initial hump. I find it's very hard to to just get out of your head. Johnny does make a very good point. If it helps, the writing on most comics is terrible. Try remembering that. Yeah. Not that I'm, good by any stretch, but I know I can do a better job than maybe some of the scripts that I get. That's not dissing my collaborators. Because I enjoy working with them, but it's sometimes I think to myself like maybe it's more like if I was in charge of this, what would I do differently? Enjoy your pancakes, Skinny Drawn Boy. Um, I can't believe it's coming up to an hour. This feels like it's only been about 10 minutes. But I'm not really going anywhere, so I'm happy to stick around for quite a while. Every time, yes. Oh no! There we go. That's good, but I don't think that's technically right. The dog is something which I really wanted to put in, and now I think the dog has tripped me up a little bit. But again, I think it's just something I'm going to have to get better at along the line. I'll do some, again, it might be a post-production job whenever this goes to print. Jake says, "Man, I wish I could ink this fast." Oh, yeah, I guess. Am I inking fast? Thank you. Anyway, it's what was it that James Kolchalka said that upset everyone at one point? Craft is the enemy. I think after working on Rick and Morty for so long, and realizing that no one was actually reading it, I sort of maybe put less. I don't want to say less care into it, but it was a bit like, well, not many people are going to read this, and when they do read it, they're going to read it for like 20 seconds and then turn the page. So I was a bit, I don't know, trying to be a bit more carefree with my drawing. It still looks good. I still like make sure stuff looks decent, but we've said this before on here, talking about people who, when they draw shoes, there was a thread about people who draw shoes and they've zoomed right in and they've drawn every lace and every like hole of the trainer and every rivet and every sort of like logo. And I'm like, it looks cool. If it was for a cover, then I can understand. James has reminded me that this was a New York Times bestseller. Quite a few people were reading Marc, but not at the end. They weren't. Not at the end. No. I look at those Comicron numbers. I know what we were dealing with at the end. James is saying, ripped jeans and a furry jacket. Marc is right at the pulse of youth culture. That's me. I totally didn't steal this from someone on Instagram. Ripped jeans, man. Yeah, it's a young person's game. I did my exercises this morning, and there was a lot of old man groaning going on. I've been trying to do them every morning. They're really boring, but yeah, I do feel the benefit after doing them. But flip, it's no fun just laying on the ground and waving your legs in the air. There's a bit of chat about process going on in the chat. The chat is good without me, so I don't need to get involved. Essentially, Jakey and John are talking about how Jake struggles to ink quick. I think it goes back to what I was saying about realizing how much time people spend reading these comics. This might sound weird as well. When I ink, and I was talking about pen weight and pen pressure a little bit, I kind of do what feels good in the hand. Don't clip that. But I know I don't need to redo this hair because it felt good when I was drawing it. It's wild, and I think years of working with a brush pen, the most like gnarly, inconsistent tool I could find, and beating that thing into submission again. Don't clip that. It has made me appreciate, or made me get better. Sorry, at working digitally. Yeah, there's a bit of chat about working on paper as well. Johnny says when he draws on paper now, they end up sticking their nose super close to it. That's what I do. So my setup is like I've got my iPad on my desk. I normally have a drawing board, but for streams I find it's a bit easier to do it just in the case. Sorry, the iPad case. It's got like a little slant to it. And I can sit like this still and comfortably draw. I think because I can zoom in. But when I work on paper, it's because my eyes are bad. I think zooming out is really important. I know you guys are talking about that as well, but also what I found was printing my work. I find the actual printing of the work and then making notes to do revisions, like a second draft for the inks, is vital. She shouldn't be evil. When I was staying with Robin in Weymouth, I think I missed that step when I was doing some work, and it was only until I got back at my own setup again I sort of noticed all my mistakes. Even though like we live in a world now where like digital is fastly becoming the norm, I still treat all my inking and all my comics as a print component. So will they look good at print size? Will they look good shrunk down? Did loads of test prints today. I sort of like printed it at US comic size and I printed it at UK comic size. I was like, is this font the right size? I have no idea. But it was important for me to sort of see all that stuff in print, not just at 1,000 pixels wide. The one of the troubles with comics nowadays is that they can be read digitally, and so I think some artists get a little bit worried about the zooming that you can do now. Like if you read on Comixology or a tablet or something, stuff that when you read it on print you would never see, but now you could infinitely zoom in and go, that's a bad drawing in the background. I mean, some people get a little bit worried about that stuff. I don't care. Don't care anymore. This one goes on the outside. Also, showing your stuff to other people I think is really important. So I show all of my drawings to Robin because she has, even though she's a designer, she doesn't have this sort of like comic artist eye. And I just ask her to like spot my mistakes, just to see what you can find. And she's like, "Oh, you've drawn this T-shirt different in this panel," and I go, "Is that worth me making a correction for?" It's also really interesting when she finds stuff that a comic artist maybe wouldn't see. I can't give an example at the top of my head, but she too has become the valuable part of my editing process. And that arm is way long. Let's trim that down. And of course, send it to your friends as well. Like I've been sending like pages to Johnny, like every day for the last couple of months. For all I know, he's been printing them off and writing obscenities on them, and then shoving them in the recycling bin. Oh, that line is too thin. Just talking about zooming out there, I didn't realise that line was going to be too thin until I started zooming out. It's going to need to be a little bit bigger. The Chloe looks fine, but the Zoe was too thin. And again, I think it's because I've not penciled it. Sorry, I've not given it as much detail in the pencils as I have done everything else, so it's taken me a second or two to figure out what I'm doing. Oh, she looks drunk out of her mind here. No, that's not what I want. The chin needs to go up because she's looking up. Okay. The mouth might be too big. Let's do another layer. It's that damn Rick and Morty mouth that I keep doing. Let's see if a normal mouth will be. Yeah, okay, that's a bit better. I say normal mouth. It's a bit more of a Simpsons mouth there, but there we go. I gotta look at those mouths again for the remasters collection. I didn't share my writing either, Jakey. I was a bit nervous to send it to John. It was only until I did the second draft, which I was a little bit more comfortable sharing stuff. Because, like, the thing is, if someone that you admire, right, tells you your work isn't I don't want to say not good. What do I want to say? Could be better. Maybe it just needs a bit of improvement. Like, that again is a very vital step. Of the editing process. Are there lots of artists looking for paid work on someone else's idea? Yeah, as Johnny says, literally every bloody person. Well, virtually, but and are the page rates awful? Yeah, well, it depends. In indie comics, essentially, I know a lot of the case. A writer will pay an artist to help work up a proof of concept, right, or a pitch, right. But a lot of that money comes from the writer's pocket, especially for indie books. But I mean, I got paid all right on Rick and Morty. I always say Rick and Morty, like that stuff. It was all the extra stuff that came with it. So selling comics at cons and stuff. So I don't really look at my page rate. I sometimes look at like my earnings, total earnings. Um, Although if someone offered me £50 a page, I would tell them to go screw. Well, yeah, a bad page rate would be 50, I think. It also depends what you're doing. If you're doing full illustration, including colouring and lettering, I'm trying to think what I got paid at Boom when I worked very briefly. I think the writer and I shared $100 a page. And I was doing drawing, colouring and lettering. Yeah, it was not great. If you're just doing drawing, I think a good page rate would be around about 150. I think a great page rate is a 2 to 250. I have no idea what Marvel pay. It's very different for indie books. I hear a lot of horror stories about what some publishers pay their indie titles. But and then if you listen to Graphic Novel TK, it's a comics-focused publishing podcast. They talk a lot about the difference between comic publishers and, say, big New York-style proper publishers. And your advance with them could be in the tens of thousands. And for a lot of people, they go, wow, yeah, great. 40k, great. But then you have to go, A, how long is this book going to take me to do? Is it going to take me a month to do? No. To draw a 200-page graphic novel, it's going to take you at least a year, right? 18 months. And then you go, right, is that enough to live on? And you go, yeah, that would be enough. But then you go, am I going to get it all in one go? No, you're not. You're going to get it in 3 to 4 installments. And you go, oh, okay, can I live off 10 grand? To begin with? When am I going to see the last payment? Normally it's on completion. It's a really good podcast. If you're interested in working in comics, I find that is one of the best ones to listen to. It's not just two blokes talking about which Web of Spider-Man arc is the best. Spoilers, it's none of them. What also is another good comics podcast to listen to? Off Panel. David Harper. That is a great comics podcast. He does sometimes talk too much about sports, though, but which is whatever. But he has a nice variety of guests, and he seems to ask actually intelligent questions about the industry and people's work within. He also talks. He talks as much as he does superhero comics as he does indie comics. I said that weird. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is, on his podcast, he doesn't look down or focus on one area of comics. He seems to get a decent selection of guests. And he talks to publishers and retailers. Artists, writers. Comics are hard work. I mean, it's not a um, massively lucrative industry, but um, I get a little bit. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't like saying that there's no money in comics because that does put people off. And it's not always true. Um, you just have to work hard at it. Like it could take you 10 years to make a living. Um, but I mean, when I first started out, I mean, I was paid absolute dog poo on Love the Way You Love. I think I remember getting the email about how much I was earning and then having like all the colour drain from my face and going, I need to find a job tomorrow because I can't live on this. It was when the pound was really good against the dollar. So essentially your American paycheck would be halved, which is not the case anymore. But So I just took loads of illustration jobs. I had a part-time job as well, like a retail job, which I effing hated. But I kept that job even when I was working on Rick and Morty and earning way more than I needed to. Because I was afraid of being poor again. I think sometimes people don't realise how much of a hustle comics is. It's maybe the thing I don't necessarily feel comfortable doing, but it is a hustle. You've got to sort of hustle for work sometimes. You got to make your own work. Like the whole reason I started a Patreon, honestly, was um, in order to give myself a bit of a cushion, and also because I wanted to kind of connect with my audience again. So yeah, going back, this is a very long way of saying um, page rates are important, but sometimes you need to look at the whole picture. So if you get sent comp copies of your books and you can sell them, how much can you sell them for? How many comps do you get? Times that number by the amount that you sell them at. Does that somehow boost your earnings? Can you sell the original art? Do you have, a demand for it? Say you do 22 pages a month, how much do you sell your pages for? 100, 200, 300? Grand? Does that help? Comic conventions can be an absolute giant headache, but again, they can be quite a good earner. Like for years, like my earnings have been like, convention earnings have been a third of my overall like takings. So when conventions went away this year, I was a bit of a scary time. Um, yeah, is this helpful? I hope it's helpful. I feel like I'm ranting a little bit, not ranting, rambling. Cool, well that's all the foreground done. I just got to bum around doing all that detailed background. What's that one? Okay. Let's yeah, let's go a bit longer. Well, I'm getting a bit hungry. My tom-tom starts gurgling. Can only apologise. Right, I'm going to need to... Backgrounds are not the most fun thing to draw in the world, but I do get irrationally annoyed when artists just don't bother. There's one comic, I won't say what it is, I'll be coy about it, but essentially it is a comic that is continuously late. I do wonder how it is late when the artist doesn't draw any backgrounds. Like, at all. To the point where, when I did read it, I had no idea where the characters were, because they were just against this, like, mauve gradient. Sometimes a cyan gradient. And if I could ban anything, it would be those poxy purple gradients. I was like, how is this comic late? Just how is it late every month? How has it been like 7 months between issues when no one draws backgrounds? I'm cutting some promos. That's it is Steeple John. It's Dark Horse's bestseller. I think backgrounds are extremely important in a comic. They give you money where the characters are. The backgrounds, the settings, they give a lot about who the characters are. I've said this before, no, I've done this rant before. This sounds like a rant I've done before. Yeah, there was a question from Jakey about how would an artist typically prefer to be approached about a project? It might be an idea. There's a lot of artist groups on Twitter and stuff, or Facebook, sorry. It's to see who's interested in drawing the subject which you want to work in. A lot of the emails which I ignore are ones where it's something I've got zero interest in drawing, or like John says, writers just email people who don't want to draw it because they're already drawing something else already, or drawing something that they want to draw already. That's what I find. That also needs to be a thinner line. I have found the other thing which I'm supposed to be working on at the moment a bit of a struggle, because I just want to draw this, for example. I don't want to draw anything else. I just want to draw Chloe Noonan at the moment. Which is unhelpful because I don't think this comic is going to make me any money in the long run. Creatively, it's extremely important, but we'll go through till 6, maybe just before 6. When I said I'll go through till 6, I didn't mean I'm just going to go on my phone for 24 minutes, sorry. Cool. Sorry, just looking at how curtains work. They're more straight line rather than jaggedy boys. Try and give them a bit of texture there. Cool. Cool. Back to that one. Am I on a different layer? I hope I am. Yeah, good, fine. Mm. Am I at the stage of a stream where I start complaining about my hay fever? No, I don't think I am. But insert a whinge about hay fever here. Thank you to Gregory8767 for the follow. We're on the road to 50 followers. Can we do it in the next 20 minutes? No, we can't. But if you don't follow, please smash that follow button. It's very appreciative. I saw the alert sound, just scares the absolute crap out of me. Essentially the chair needs to be straighter. Kind of giving it a weird bend. It shouldn't do. Yeah, okay, that's a bit better. Yeah, go from the other end. Sometimes when I'm inking, if it doesn't look good, say I try and draw a straight line or something, or a curved line, it doesn't look good, I'll undo it and then just try from the other end. So rather starting the line from top to bottom, I'll go from bottom to top, or right to left, or left to right. Don't want a tangent there either. So trying to draw it freehand. It's not bad. Tangents, man, I tell you. Oh, it's going to be tangents if I do a tassel. Ah, suck it up, comics. This is going to get me fired. I'm going to have to hand in all my comics badges. I don't like the tassels anyway. So I need a bit more wonkiness to them. Cheers, Johnny. Thanks for joining us. See you next week in the chat. That was a weird goodbye. Sorry. Tell you what, let's go another 10 minutes and then we'll wrap up at 5:02. I think it's gone. Okay. Swear words. Yeah, it's good. Are we back? No, we're gone. Okay, fine. How can I... Can I get rid of... Okay, are we back? Tell you what. Okay, cool. I think the stream is dying, so this will probably only be visible on YouTube afterwards. Thank you for joining my stream. I'm sorry it has died at the end. Wow, what an interesting thing. Allison leaves and my stream dies. I'll be having words. I will be back on Tuesday at 4 p.m. here on Twitch if I can get this back up and running. If you do not follow me, please follow me. Follow me on Twitch. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the rest. I have a Patreon. You'll find all that stuff at Marc Ellaby. In the meantime, have a good weekend. Stay safe. And yeah. Shrink that. Take care. Goodbye.